Hey guys, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our statewide webinar. This is Texas Legal Framework, where our presenter will be going over legal framework and introducing you to all kinds of great tools and resources available there. Before we get started, let's just go over a few of our fun little housekeeping rules for webinars. So you can see in the chat box that we've already been interacting some. And if you have technical issues or anything of that nature, you have comments, something like that, please feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat box. Lee will be taking questions at the end of this walkthrough. If you have questions, as usual, please put those in the Q&A box. You can access that either at the top or the bottom of your screen. In the menu bar, the little box has a Q in it. You'll be able to enter your questions in there. We just want to make sure that questions don't get lost in the chat box, so that's why we like to keep things separate. We will do Q&A during the last 15 minutes or so of the presentation. So before we get started, let me tell you who we are and what we do, and then I'll introduce our speaker and get going. My name is Megan Sanders, and I'm the Training and Evaluation Specialist for Partners Resource Network. Joining me today is Ms. Christina Hitting, who is the Director of Statewide Services. Partners Resource Network is the nonprofit agency that operates the Texas statewide network of parent training and information centers. That would be the PATH Project, the PEN Project, and the TEAM Project. We are federally funded by a grant from Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, known as OSEP. We provide training, education, information, referral, technical assistance, and emotional support for parents of children with disabilities birth to 26 years of age and the professionals who work with these kiddos. All right, guys, this is our presenter today. This is Lee Lentz Edwards. And let me get her bio pulled up real quick. Sorry about that. Lee Lentz Edwards has served as a member of the statewide leadership team for the legal framework for the child-centered process in Texas since 2005. She works with the team to research, construct, and edit the legal framework and its website. She also provides training to school personnel and parents about the use of legal framework. Lee is currently a consultant working with students and teachers in Region 18. Her background includes responsibility as an educator and administrator at an elementary and secondary level. All right, Lee, I will let you get started whenever you're ready.
Thank you. As I told Megan and Christina, I'm not a professional in relationship to Zoom meetings, so I'm going to do my very best. So I'm going to share my screen with you, I hope. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am. We can see it just fine.
Okay, thank you. This website, the legal framework site for the child-centered special education process, has all the state, federal laws, and also the Commissioner and the State Board of Education rules on it. It houses the Notice of Procedural Safeguards, which is what we used to call back in the old days, the rights booklet. So parents will know what their rights are if they're the parent of a child with a disability. Also, it houses the Parent's Guide to the Admission Review and Dismissal Process. And that's what, as we talk about, it's for the parents of the children who have just been identified, or there's a term in there that you really don't understand. That's what that's for. It's written in a very parent-friendly voice. And then the next publication that we house is the Special Education Rules and Regulations. And that's where we call that the side-by-side. And what it does is it has all of the federal laws, all of the state laws, and all of the Texas Administrative Code, which are the Commissioner's rules and the State Board of Education rules. It has them all side by side so that you can see. So that you can see them all at once. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through each segment. And if I go too fast, I apologize. When I get nervous, I talk real fast. If I'm talking slow, it means that, I'm real comfortable. So I'm going to try to be real comfortable and talk real slow. On this page, you will notice in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm moving my cursor over to this so that you can see it. If you ever have a question, you can't find what you're looking for, here's our telephone number. One of us here at Region 18 will answer this phone call, and if we can't find what you're looking for in the legal framework, we will refer you to SpedTex. SpedTex is the Information Center of Texas that is funded through federal funds also, and those are very, very helpful staff housed out of Region 10. If you want to send us an email because it's 2 o'clock in the morning when you're looking for your question and we're probably not sitting by the phone, then right here, frameworkhelp@esc18.net, that's where you could send us an email and we would try to answer your question when we came to the office. I'm going to start over on the well, I already started, but in the further up, I hadn't scrolled all the way down, so I skipped a step. But in the very top corner, it says mobile site. Now, what's exciting about that mobile site is the fact that the mobile site will change everything to where when you're using a tablet or you're using a phone, it'll all fit on your screen. And one thing about our website is it is meant to be able to be enlarged or shrunk so that it'll fit everything on the screen so you can see what it is that you want to see. In a moment, when I get into the frameworks, I'll actually come back to the mobile side and show you the difference between what you would see on a regular laptop and what you would see. The verbiage will be the same, but the background will be just a little bit different. Before the yellow ribbon, you'll see that it says Versión Español. Well, that's because everything except for a direct quote of the law here on the Legal Framework website is in English as well as Spanish. And if you click Versión Español, it's going to change everything into Spanish. All the stuff that we just saw, it's now in Spanish instead of in English. Now I'm going to go back to the English version because, as you can tell from my wonderful accent, I'm not really versed in Spanish. I've practiced Versión Español, but that's about as much as I've got to share with you. As you go across the ribbon to the left, you will see that it tells you, if you click on that, it's going to pull up for you a little PowerPoint. And that PowerPoint, and we could play it, it does not have sound. One of the reasons that we've held back from having sound is because there's more requirements for it to be compliant. It used to be called Bobby compliant. It used to be, but there's a new, I think it's called 508 compliance, and it's easier if you just visualize it rather than if you're hearing it as well. That's about a 5-minute and 44-second video, but what it'll do is it'll walk you through and it'll tell you everything in 5 minutes and 44 seconds that I'm going to tell you in 45 minutes. So it's just a brief snippet. The next thing that you see says frameworks. And you see here that there's a long list of frameworks. Now we're going to come back to this. We call this the framework menu. These they are not in alphabetical order. They're actually in chronological order. If you had a question, where are you in the admission, review, and dismissal process? Is your child struggling? Is your child already identified? Is it time for an evaluation? What the framework does is it actually gives you the specific laws. And we're going to come back to that because there's a lot in that piece right there. The next one says updates. And if you click on updates, you'll see that the last time something was updated was July the 23rd of 2018. And you say, well, why would it be 2018? We had a legislative session. Well, because a law passes and then it has to be signed by the governor, and then it has to be codified, and then we can work on placing that verbiage in our framework, and then it goes to TEA, and at TEA they have 2 levels of review. One is in the policy team, and one is with their legal review. Once they have approved it, made their suggestions, they send it back to us. If they just approved it immediately, then what we do is we send it to a 3-layer translation. And we have some frameworks that have already come back from TEA, and they are in translation as we speak. As soon as they come back from translation and we post them to the website, if you were to click on updates and it says 11/15/19, you'll know that on November the 15th of 2019 that a particular framework has been updated. And when it has, you can click, it will be listed under the date, and it will be linked, and you can go right straight to it. The next tab is called Resources, and I think you're going to like this because there's some really, really good resources that are here. What we did is we didn't try to reinvent the wheel. What we tried to do was take all the wheels out there and build the best one. We went through every one of the 20 Regional Service Center web pages and looked at all the special ed resources that were out there, and then we categorized them. Now, we didn't take every one of them. There were over 350 of them, but we took the ones that we thought were the most beneficial, and then we categorized them, and then we have them listed here on our resource page. You can see that the first column is entitled National Resources. We used to call it federal, but then it kind of sounded like it had to do with the government. And these are not necessarily government resources. Some of these sites are government sites, but some of these sites are just good, solid nonprofits out there that are there to help. Let's pick just a category. Let's look at autism. The reason I chose autism is because there's resources out there on all 4 of our categories, our headings: national, parent, state, and special education leadership projects. So you can see that under the topic of autism, and I want to try to make it a little bigger so that you can see that. You can see that in that very first column, look at all those very, very good autism resources. One of the most popular out there is Autism Speaks. And you can see that that's just a direct link, and it's got really good information on it. It spells it out for those parents that need to know some information about autism, and they really want to do it themselves. They really want to go and find and do the research themselves. And so that's what we've tried to do here. And that's a federal or a national resource. Now let's go over to parent resources, and you'll see that under autism, can you shake your head if you can see them? Everybody's blocked themselves, so I can't see you, but okay, you can see those. Okay, so there's a help guide in recognizing the early signs and symptoms of autism. Let's look at that just for a moment. Look what a good site that is. There's information from parents, just really good. There's an example here of developmental red flags. It's just got some really, really good information for parents. That box says common restricted and repetitive behaviors. There's just some great information out there under the topic of parent, and we're under the subtopic of autism. So I'm gonna make it little again so that I can go back to the right. Now you see that this third column says state resources. Now I'm gonna make it big again so that you can see it. And under state resources under autism, there's information here on the annual autism conference here in Texas. The last one was held August the 1st and 2nd in San Antonio in 2019. And when they plan next year's conference, that's where you're going to find the information. There's also information here on the autism circuit. And it's got more information. You could spend the next 2 weeks on this site. It's got so much great stuff in it. And then the fourth category is the state leadership projects. I'm getting there. I'm sorry, there we go, here we come. And you'll see that the Autism Conference has been hosted by Education Service Center 2 out of Corpus, but you'll also see that the statewide leadership is actually now out of Region 13, which is Austin. And so that's basically, in a nutshell, what our resources are. And if you parents out there will let us know you found a great resource, we can add it at any time. And I apologize for closing that. I did not mean to. The next number, or the next word on the ribbon, is called the glossary. Now, what you're going to like about the glossary, any word that's in special education that applies to special education, we have researched and we have found good, solid definitions. One of the things that's hard about special education is they use so many acronyms. How do we know what they mean? All of these words that have acronyms, their acronyms are listed with the definition. And as you can see, it's page after page after page of good, solid definitions that deal with special education. Here's a great parent-friendly definition. Community Resource Coordination Group, an interagency group comprised of public and private child service providers who meet on a regular basis to review service needs and provide limited case management services for students who have multiple personal and family needs. These needs, which adversely affect their ability to benefit from the educational program, are best met through interagency coordination. By state law, every county in Texas has a CRCG, and they meet once a month. There are usually representatives from DARS, from the school district, from the county health. There can be any agencies that you have in your town, your city, that provide services to youth with disabilities. They come together and they work together to help not just the child, but the family as well. That's just one example of the definitions that are listed here. And as you can see, there are lots and lots of acronyms in special ed, and you will find all of the definitions that have acronyms. They are listed there as well. Well, I keep going back. You see, I do that because I click too fast, but it always makes me feel like, well, you know, as a parent, when I'm using an unfamiliar source, if I click, am I going to be lost? How do I get right back to where I was? All I did was go right back to the same website. That website again is framework.esc18.net. Next comes some documents. Now, what's good about these documents is they have been created by the Texas Education Agency. Parents sometimes move from one district, or families move from one district to another. And when they do, sometimes the paperwork in District 1 doesn't look exactly like the information from District 2. And so what you might want to do is you might want to go in here to the Iep Model Form. And if you were to do that, what you'd want to do is you would want to look and see what information, and I'm going to make that bigger for you, what information is required by law. This form is compliant by law, and in it, all of the pieces that you would need to be filled in, you would want to look, where can I find this in District 1, where I came from, and now we've moved to District 2, where can I find this piece in District 2's paperwork? So now you know what's required. Sometimes there's information that's in the IEP that's in there just for information purposes, and it's not necessarily required. This shows you what is actually required. And because it's a multi-page document, one of the things that you will find is that we also, and I did it again, that's just to make everybody feel good, right? But you see it doesn't take but a moment to come right back. Also listed in here, we have in the English, we have that in English and Spanish, as you can see, but we also have a guidance document, and the guidance document explains each one of those segments. Each segment that we looked at before, remember it started out and it had every piece was labeled. Well, here is the stuff that you would put in. It's not required that you have all of this information, but as it says, examples of the types of information that school personnel may want to include are as follows. Well, we're going to need something to identify the student, but all of this type of information is, you can put it in, there's got to be some information that identifies the student. There must be annual goals. And notice there are also some good solid links. If you haven't had your child in special education before, you may not be familiar with the ever popular acronym, the PLAFAPA. Now, that's supposed to be funny because I really don't know how else to pronounce that, but as you can see, it's PLAAFP. Well, if that is a requirement, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to know, what can the child do? Where is the child? Can the child add 2-digit numbers, 5-digit numbers? Can they do their multiplication? That kind of information. Well, maybe we don't know what type of information we're looking for. Texas Project First is a great resource, and they have information on PLAF. And that's just one example of how you would do that. Did it right that time. Did you notice what I actually did that time was I closed the little X, not the one in the right-hand corner. This next document is one that diagnosticians and LSSPs, they love this document. Now, in my professional life, I am not a diagnostician. Diagnosticians are some of the smartest people in the school district, and it takes somebody with some real togetherness to be able to understand this, what I consider a complicated document. So what TEA came back to us and said, I understand what you're saying here, that within 30 calendar days, then you must do this, and then you must do this within 30 school days. But could you make it a little simpler so that the Leland-Edwards people of the world could actually understand what you're talking about? So, and I'm stuck again. Just a second, my cursor isn't loving me. Okay, I found it. So now I'm going to close the X at the top of the page again, and I'm going to come down here to the timeline decision tree. I'm still under the Documents tab, And as I open this up, oh my goodness, what a lovely little girl we have here. And you see a PowerPoint. Now, this isn't a typical PowerPoint because this PowerPoint is not meant for you to go screen 1, screen 2, screen 3 in sequence. The first 4 slides, yes, you're to go in order. Now, make it a little bit bigger so that it'll fit on the page. So what this tells us is how to use the timeline. This is that timeline that we just saw that was all complicated, and we tried to simplify it. We have colored boxes and we have underlined text. The colored boxes are going to take you to the question. The underlined text is an actual link. Now remember I said the first 4 slides are meant to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was slide 2. The first one was just the cover slide. Now here's where it gets a little complicated. Well, once you get past 4, you're going to be so excited because it works so wonderfully. So how to navigate the questions, you're going to click on either the colored box or you're going to click on the publication on the timeline so that you can find out more information. If you click the word question to review, then you will find out what the actual question is. If you click on the underlined word or phrase within a slide, you're going to get more information. Now there's 2 kinds of home buttons. One home button is green. Green is go. Red is stop. At any time, if you want to go back to the front, you can hit the home button, whether it's green or red. But if you hit the green one, what you're finding out is there was actually more information than you actually are going to get if you hit the red one, because the red one's just going to take you back to page 4. Okay? So if you click on the legal framework icon, it's going to tell you where the legal reference, where you can find the answer to the question that you're looking for. A reminder, the green home button indicates there's more to come. The red home button means that's the end of this sequence. But clicking either button returns you to the timeline. That's page 3. Now we're on page 4. Look at the colored boxes. We knew they were coming because we talked about that. Okay? So what we can do is we can click on a colored box or we can click on a publication. The publications down here are like where it says Notice of Procedural Safeguards. That's a publication. So let's just, for grins, pick number of calendar days to hold an ARD meeting. How do we know how many calendar days? And here's our question. When the full individual and initial evaluation is completed, what is the timeline from the date of the written report to hold an ARD committee meeting to determine eligibility? Now, if you remember, if you click on the word question, you're going to get the answer. But before we do, you can see this one right here. If you click on this, if you click the green home box, you'll notice that there's more information to come because this isn't an answer. This is just the question. If we click on this icon, it will pull up the legal reference. So we're going to go up to question. We're going to click on question. Aha! It's a question within a question. Was the consent received at least 35, but less than 45 school days before the last instructional day of the school year? So let's just for grins say that answer is no. Look at the answer. Our answer came up when I clicked no, and it said the ARD committee must meet within 30 calendar days of completion of the written, full, individual, and initial evaluation. Now, you'll notice that our home button is still green. The reason being, even though we got an answer, there's another question on this page. And so now that question says, because remember, we're trying to find out When is our calendar days? So the question is, when does the 30th calendar day occur? Another question within a question. Does it occur during the regular school year when the school is in session, or in the summer when school is not in session? Let's pretend like that the 30 days is going to be in the summertime. So we click here. If the 30th calendar day falls during the summer and school is not in session, the ARD committee must meet by the first day of classes in the fall. Again, there's still a green box. So even though you ask one question and you got an answer, you can keep going because the questions keep getting more complicated. Notice in the right-hand column, on the right-hand side of the page, it says legal framework, has a legal framework icon, and it lists the laws that you will find in the framework, excuse me, as admission, dismissal, committee meeting in that particular framework. Excuse me. Just because we're going to move on, if I hit the green button, remember I said it's going to take us back to the colored boxes. So here's another example of the colored boxes. So let's look at the consent for initial placement. And I'm just randomly picking. So the question was, did the ARD committee determine the student is eligible for special education services? Well, that's going to be either a yes or a no. So let's say that they said yes. We click there, and here's our answer. The ARD committee must obtain a consent for initial services, develop an IEP, and provide a prior written notice for the identification, placement, and provision of a free appropriate public education. Look at this, and you'll see on the left-hand side, you will see that the home button is red. Red or green is going to take us back to the colored boxes on page 4. You'll also notice before you leave this page, all the legal references that gives you these answers to that question. So now if I hit the red home button, it's going to take me back to where I have more opportunities to find out more information. And again, what this decision tree does is it puts it in a format that's a little easier to understand than the timeline that we previously looked at, which was this one. And as you can see, this one has all the information anybody would want in one page, but it's not the easiest to understand. So the second one, the colored one, the one that just answers your specific question, is a very, very helpful tool for parents. I'm going to close that. And now I'm going to skip search, and I'm going to go back to home. The reason I'm going to home is because I want to get off of this page so we can go through the actual frameworks themselves. Now, if you're in a charter school or an ISD, you may want to know, what do our board policies say about what do they say on a particular topic? So what I'm going to do is, one of our other presenters said she was from Beaumont. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put in Beaumont. If I can spell it. Did I spell it right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And as you can see, a number comes up. That's called the county district number. And I'm going to click on the county district number. And when I do, notice what happened is the list of frameworks came up again. And you say, well, how do I know I'm going to get information about Beaumont? Well, one of the very first steps in special education is to find the children that have disabilities. And it is a federal law that requires that school districts find the children with disabilities. Now, what's interesting about that is that a charter school must find the children with disabilities, but their responsibility is to find the children they're already serving, because charter schools are found within school districts, within the borders of a school district. And so within the borders of that school district, it would be, if the child, wherever the child resides, it is the school district's responsibility to find the children with disabilities. So here we go. I clicked on Child Find Duty, and I want to know what does the law tell us we need to do? Well, you will notice that we are linked to board policies for Beaumont ISD. There's that number that we saw, and we can memorize that number, or we don't have to, because we still know how to spell Beaumont, and we can get it that way. And I'm going to show you that if you click here for this particular topic, and I go into I can go into the HTML, the PDF, or the Word version. I happen to like to go into the PDF, because if you go into PDF, you know you're not going to change anything, because just because you change it when you read it doesn't mean you've really changed the policy. So the PDF comes up, and this particular one is about homebound instruction. Oh, because not all students can come to school. And here we go. Here's some information on special education. There are quite a few board policies that deal with child find duty. The laws that deal with child find duty is the U.S. Code 11434A, and in the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 34, Part 300. Also in the Texas Education Code, and also in Chapter 89 of the Texas Administrative Code. Now, those are the authorities. Now, you say, well, what is an authority? It's like a book of laws. So it's a book of laws. Well, then what are the citations themselves? The citations themselves are like the page of the book. It's like the sentence of the law itself. So, for instance, the first, we call them cells. The first cell says, all children with disabilities residing in the state, regardless of the severity of their disabilities, and who are in need of special education and related services, must be identified, located, and evaluated. Now, that's what we're saying. That's kind of layman's terms. So let's look and see what the actual law says. You're going to see that it's pretty darn close to exactly the same. Now, earlier in this broadcast or Zoom, I said everything is in English and Spanish except for direct quotes of the law. So here's where I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Remember our Versión Español? If I click Versión Español, it's now in Spanish. Todos los niños, and I'm going to stop there before I embarrass myself. You'll see that it's in Spanish. However, under the column that used to say citations, it now says citas. When I click over here, you're going to see that it's in English. The reason being is we don't translate the law. The reason that we do not translate the law is because there can be different interpretations of the law. I'm going to go back to the English version. One of the things that I want you to notice is some of the font is in blue, some of the font is in black. That's in black has a D in front of it, and the D in front of it stands for document. And if I click that D, you will see that it says the D items indicate requirements to be documented in the special education process. They can be addressed on forms or by a representative statement in a written dialogue. The written dialogue is usually the notes or the minutes or the deliberations, whatever you want to call them, that are usually kind of towards the back of the IEP, but they could be a checkbox. There could be a paragraph that's added. but it must be included in the IEP itself. That's what, if it has a D. If it has a P, it means that the items are requirements which must be reflected in practice, which means we ought to be able to see it. And in that, all of these are laws, so all of these are required. It's not, but the ones that have the D's and are in black font, those are the ones that have to be documented that you're actually going to see in paperwork, in writing. And many of the frameworks have document requirements. I'm going to go back to the menu, and I want to talk to you quickly about the categories. The first category is child find. We try to find all the children, and when we've found the children, these are the requirements that we have to do before we actually refer a child. We hope when we find the children that we find the babies first. We don't want to wait till they're 12 years old to find they have a disability. So we start with ages 0 to 5. Sometimes children transfer in. Some children who are incarcerated are children with disabilities. If they're being served when they in a special education program, when they become incarcerated, their rights continue. And there's laws that protect them. Children in private school, and that includes homeschoolers, there's laws that affect them. And the schools must provide, the public schools must provide proportionate share. And then we have parent. Now, parents is not just the biological parents. It can be the surrogate parent, the foster parent, the children who are wards of the state. There's information there. A child that turns 18 when they're 17, there's laws that say, hey, next year when this child is 18, here's what's going to happen. That's where you're going to find that information. Then comes the concept of an evaluation. Here's all of the things in relationship to an evaluation. Once the child has been evaluated, then we're ready to come to an ARD meeting. These are all of the requirements of the ARD meeting. All of these areas must be addressed. But prior to us doing anything, we've got to have prior written notice. And there's laws about prior written notice. Consent. Before we even evaluate, there has to be a consent for an evaluation, for services. All of these things have to be addressed and require written consent. Children that are being served and they are children with disabilities, there's laws to protect them that deal with restraint and timeout. There's a whole category here on discipline. What can the school do? What can the school not do? What are the laws? And then we have some more topics down here that deal with records and funding and administration. I'm going to scroll back up to the top because I want to go back to search. Earlier we talked about, and I'm going to be quick now because I'm running out of time. I skipped the search key. It's one of the most important things that are here, because what if you had a topic and say your topic was autism? Where would we find information on autism? Do I have to read all of those? And you know, that's like an encyclopedia. There's too much for me to read. Well, here you go. We type in autism, we hit search, and look what it tells you. There's only 4 that deal with autism. So let's look at the framework that is autism. And you'll notice that every time the word autism comes up, which that's the word we were searching for, it's highlighted in yellow. This is a really, really efficient mode for us to find information. It's quick, it's easy. One of the things you say, well, I've already been to autism and I know what it is I want. Then what you can do is you can click the plus key. When you click the plus key, it now changes to a minus, and you say, oh, this is the one that I wanted. And when I click there, it's going to take me right to the one that I was looking for. Now I'm going to go to home, and I'm sorry that I'm rushing here, but this is a really designed to be a user-friendly website so that if you have a question, you can find it or you can call us and we can help you. I mentioned early on about the publications. This is the Notice of Procedural Safeguards. This is required that parents get this every year at an annual ARD. Anytime there's a discipline ARD, anytime there is a complaint that has been filed, or let's look and see when else it tells us that we have to have it. And it's going to tell us right here on that very first page. And it tells us right here, and I'm trying to make that big enough that you can see it. There are the 5 times that the Notice of Procedure Safeguard should be given to the parent. And the very last one is most important because it tells, that says when a decision is made to take a disciplinary action. But also look right here, upon your request for evaluation, receipt of the first special ed complaint that's filed or due process. But it's also this very, very, very last one, or upon your request, you can ask for that Notice of Procedure Safeguard anytime that you want to. You notice it's in a 2-column format. The table of contents is hyperlinked. So if you came up with a topic and you wanted to know, you don't have to read the whole thing. You can find what you're looking for easily. The Parents Guide, which of course is in English and Spanish, just like the Notice of Procedure Safeguard. This is like the primer. This is like the basic knowledge on special education. The law requires that it is given out upon initial consent for evaluation, and it is also required that it be given out anytime a parent asks for it. Now you can find it anytime you want on the Legal Framework website. This page is also the introduction is also hyperlinked. The last publication is what we call the side-by-side, and it's 347 pages, so it's got a lot of information in it. But you can see that it has the federal regulations, the state laws, and it also has the commissioner and the state board rules. If there's something in 2 columns, you've got to follow both sets of rules. In this particular example, there's something in all 3 columns, which means you must follow all 3 sets of rules. You'll notice on our left, we have a map of Texas. Beaumont, you're going to find that it's in Region 5. And Beaumont, if you had a question on the legal framework, these are the 2 people that you would contact. And I hope you can see that. Dr. Fussell and Lisa Heiner. We had somebody at Region 16. That's Chrissy McDaniel at Region 16. There's somebody that does what I do at every service center, and they are here to help, and they are versed in what the law tells you. If you want to know when we were to have a new framework or publication published, you can sign up right here, and if you sign up, we will send you, when something's published, it'll automatically push out to you. If you have some concerns and you want to let us know how we're doing, that's what this part right here is. There's more pieces to the framework, and if you wanted to get specialized, if you wanted to ask at another time, I will be happy to specifically address, like transition or something like that, what you can find on our website. I'm going to stop now so that my people can ask me whatever questions that they want.
Now, Megan, give me just a second. Try it now. There you go.
There we go. All right. We do have some questions for you. So first question, is ARD and 504 plan the same thing as an IEP?
No. An IEP is the plan that is made. IEP stands for Individualized Education Program, and it's the plan that the committee, the Admissions Review and Dismissal Committee, makes for the student. 504, they don't have ARD meetings because they're not considered special ed. Special ed people are protected by Section 504, but it's not the same. It's kind of like all squares are polygrams, but not all rectangles are parallelograms. There we go. Whatever. Bad example because I don't have my math terms down. So, but I think you catch what I'm saying. I probably messed that up. Sorry.
You're good. What if parents cannot attend the ARD meeting with the 30-day post report?
You broke up. I didn't understand you.
Sorry, it says, what if parents cannot attend the ARD meeting with the 30 days after the report?
The parents always have the right to have it scheduled at a mutually convenient time. However, by law, an ARD meeting has to occur within that time frame. And so you're going to want the school district and the parent are going to try to find a time. One of the things that happens, maybe, if they're out of the country or something, they couldn't. But sometimes you kind of got to think out of the box. Maybe we can't meet between 8 and 4. Maybe we could meet at 7:30. Maybe we could meet at 4:30, something like that. Or if the student is a student with a disability already in the program, the parent could do it by phone. They could do a video conference. They could do FaceTime. There's many options that are out there.
Perfect. All right. Next question, it says, my district is Northside ISD and has 2 entries. She's located in San Antonio, Texas. Which one is the correct district number?
Okay, I'm going to have to look that up. Give me just a second. I'm getting there.
You're good.
Oh, in answer to that question, I mean, we're going to find it, but the way that you would find that answer is you would go into Ask TED, and that's a site that lists all the school districts. And I'm going to go into, I know you can't see my screen, but let me see if I don't know where she is.
And you're welcome to share your screen again, Lee, if you need to or want to.
Okay, I went into Ask TED. I'm going to search Quick District Lookup. And I typed in North Side. And again, it's going to come out. One's in Bexar County and one's in Wilbarger County. And so if you're in San Antonio, your county district number is 015915. And that's how I differentiate it, because they do both have the same name. One's in Region 9, which is in the Wichita Falls area. The other's in Region 20, which is in San Antonio.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm going to unshare, or whatever it's called. All right, Megan, you're back.
Yeah. All right, perfect. So let's see.
Hey, Lee, you might want to pop your camera back up. There you go. Although it's a lovely fishy picture. I like that.
Thank you. My grandson made that when he was like first grade.
He did a good job.
It's his hand.
So cute.
Lovely. What is the next step for a parent when their request for an evaluation for their child is denied? The school has denied the request for the evaluation.
If a school denies a request for an evaluation, they have to give a reason. And so when they give the reason, I would follow up. I would call the special ed office. I would might start with the classroom teacher and say, are you seeing the same things that I'm seeing? And that way you kind of, you want to start at the bottom rung of the ladder. You don't want to like take a run and jump and try to get on the 4th level. You want to start and go up the ladder, up the chain of command or up the ladder. And that way you and the teacher are on the same page. And if you're not on the same page, at least you started there and you have some place to go from there.
Perfect. All right. And I know some of this gets off topic of legal framework. And so there are some questions though where I'm wondering if maybe there's some resources on legal framework you can point parents to. Question, do you have examples of good IEP goals? So do we have any resources on that?
We wouldn't, but there are networks that do. And if they'll send us a question through with an email, we will do detective work and follow up and get back with them. But do I have something I can just send right this second? No.
Sure, absolutely. Can you share the website again for everybody, just so I can type it in the chat box? Perfect. So that they can grab that for me. All right, shoot that in the chat box now for everybody as well.
You can also just Google legal framework and it usually comes up first.
Yes, that's typically, to be honest, what I do, but I wanted to go ahead and share the link for everybody if they wanted it. So, perfect. All right. When do kids receive a free public education? At what age? My child will be 3 in December, but I don't qualify for services due to income. PPCD is not required, so they consider income, but he has the autism diagnosis.
It sounds to me like that, okay, a doctor could make a diagnosis, but unless the child has been evaluated through a school system, because Dr. Knows It All could be one of the brightest people ever, but unless they're going through the school district and going through the educational evaluation process, then they aren't technically identified as a child with a disability. The short answer to the question is a child that has been evaluated, services begin on or before their 3rd birthday. Income has nothing to do with it. PPCD doesn't have anything to do with income. That would be that would be the pre-K classes that you would either be going, the child would be eligible in relationship to income or a language barrier.
All right. Thank you for answering that.
And I do want to say, I'm not an attorney. I am an educator by trade, but I do work with attorneys, and what's in the framework was approved by and directed under the direction of attorneys at TEA and from the public sector.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, so Megan, we're at 1:17. So it's time to wrap it up.
Okay, and I do want to make sure if we did not get your question today, and I know that Lee has said this already, feel free to reach out to Legal Framework and ask those questions, and they will get you some resources for the information you are looking for. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming through. Great job. Love it. So let's talk about a few things we have coming up, because we, of course, are bringing you more webinars. This coming Tuesday, November 12th at 12:15, we're going to have transition services in the IEP. That is with David Bianchi, who is the Director of Advocacy for Circle and Associates. And then following that, on Wednesday, November 13th, we have Child Find. What is it and how does it work? And that is in collaboration with Region 10 ESC. We also have Helpful Hints for Military Families with EFMs coming up Tuesday, November 19th. and that's at 12:15, and that is in collaboration with the Virginia PTI. And then Tuesday, December 3rd at 12:15, we have Dr. Shin with West Texas A&M talking about dyscalculia and mathematic learning disability, causes, characteristics, and interventions. Okay, guys, so those are the webinars we have coming up. We're, of course, working on more. If you have any suggestions for webinar topics or have any feedback for us, please feel free to shoot it our way. Our emails are on the screen. That's Megan or Christina. You can email us. We love to hear from you guys. Also know you can check out this recording, this webinar recording, as well as previous webinars and a list of upcoming webinars on our website, weareinTexas.org/statewide webinars. And make plans to join us on Facebook. If you haven't already liked our page, go find us under Partners Resource Network. We share some really cool resources, Facebook Lives, as well as the recordings for our webinars. So connect with us there. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope we will see you on Tuesday for transition services. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.